this is really cool. What's happening? Risei, or on his last comment that was of any real significance was back in April, but he's been working on, or she or whoever. I just realized I'm assuming gender. I don't know. You know, um, but this person Risei has been working on a you know uh Growlanser translation, and from my understanding, they didn't give us the first game or the sixth game and everything, and they're working on a patch to localize it and everything, and this has been a I guess this is unofficial localization that's happening now, and we're finally getting a chance to play these titles and everything, and that's really cool, I think, and hell yeah. uh, Charge my phone up, so my watch, sorry. But yeah, they're bringing it over, so that's great and everything. And it's coming over to the United States now for us English only speakers and everything, and somewhat Japanese students and everything. So they're bringing it over and everything, and that's nice and everything. But they paused development on the first to work on the sixth. I have no idea why they would do that, but so we've only got the middle of the series. We don't have the first game or the last game that's been brought over and everything. And I recently learned about it, and I'm very eager to play. And I started playing their version early on, but I've already encountered a bug that's making like one fight very difficult to finish and everything. But yeah, this is great, and this is a project that's really of high interest to me, so I'm really excited about it and everything, and this person's working on it, and so I should take that, and I should eh, keep it in my underbar as I talk about this stuff and everything, the link to it and everything. So very much so, thank you for your work and contributions and everything. Your project is progress is going to be watched and monitored, and I'm going to give you a star and everything for this and this work. And our last release was back in April and everything, which were script fixes and everything. And so domo arigato. Hopefully he or she is still, or they are still working on it, hopefully. But progress, I don't know what their you know release schedule used to be, like, just how fast of a coder Rise is and everything. So, uh, uh, yeah, well, I see. They don't really have a consistent schedule where they do it. I don't know why, but hey, but they are working on it, it seems, but they haven't contributed much of anything since April. But that isn't unusual for this particular project, so I can see that it's probably still in work. It probably hasn't been abandoned. Anyways, but they paused development on the first to work on the sixth, and so, when that's done, I guess they'll go back and work on the first and everything. And yeah, I just haven't been able to get past this particular fight, because they're trying to make you arrange on one side of the map and everything, and I do that, and it still doesn't do what it says it's going to do, the fight. Anyways, um, thank you for your time and consideration, YouTube, and everything. And yeah, by the way, the developers are talking about how Vim, and the beauty of it is that it's available on pretty much any Linux box and everything. And I'm like, I actually beg to differ with you. The part that's great about Vim is that when it was designed, I guess random access memory was more expensive, and plus, it's designed the developer time, and plus it's developer was probably just some MIT kid at the time. It was who worked at the MIT labs and everything, and when he was in the building and everything, I guess, or the software that the computers that he was borrowing didn't have a lot of random access memory available to them, and so they had to do what they could to cram as much as they could into a very small space as far as code is concerned. And so random access memory was just not as readily available back then, and there were constraints on, software development and everything. And so as a result, Vim is actually lightweight and efficient, whereas VS Code, trying to call itself lightweight, was largely the final straw for me. Microsoft Windblows trying to call VS Code lightweight was the final straw for me. I decided to use Vim Tutor. I just couldn't take it anymore. And with these fucking Electron applications, like the bloat is just absolutely insufferable. And then, somebody comes in and says, VS Code isn't bloated so long as you don't, load any applications with it. And I'm like, oh God, no. No, sir, that's absolutely wrong. VS Code is bloated even if you don't load anything with it, up with it at all. Even if you don't install any plugins to it whatsoever, it is still too bloated. Like, and VS Codium or that little project to free it up from the grasp of Microsoft, yeah, that doesn't make a big difference. It might shave it down to like 293, megabytes in size, which is just absurd. It's still way too large. Vim will fit within a megabyte at most of random access memory and everything. And in a lot of ways, it's really good in a lot, once you learn the commands, like it's a lot easier to type things than point and click at them. And, plus, if I were looking at a giant file, just absolutely enormous file, if that was of huge size, I could like, J. So the thing is that I could, I don't know, this is not a giant text files, but if I type like the command to go down, I can specify go down by like 600 like 600 lines and everything to very quickly navigate to the line number that I want it to navigate to. And when, I have that kind of functionality, I can edit text files very quickly. And in the context of like server maintenance, for instance, and you know, maintaining, that sort of thing. Maybe you have to make it like there's a configuration toggle that gets frequently toggled back and forth. Well, just being able to push one key followed by a set of numbers to navigate to a line in order to edit that line is probably one of the most quick ways to actually get to that line and everything. And, the fact is that it was written in the 70s, basically originally. And so it's much more high performance, because back when it was written, coders didn't have JavaScript, they didn't have any of those options. And, as a result, they wrote better software and everything. And, that's why it's better. And like I said, Microsoft Windblows trying to market VS Code was the final straw. I took one look at that. Took a look at how much random access memory VS Code was using, and that just broke me fundamentally. At that point, I just couldn't whew, painful. And so now I use Vim, you know, because software only has to expand to fill available random access memory if I let it.